Presentaciones tenemos a Jaime Peralta, que nos va a presentar a la próxima invitada. Jaime, adelante.
Okay, gracias, Andrés. Good morning to everyone. I'm gonna switch to English now to introduce our next speaker. Can you hear me okay? I guess so, yes. Well, it's a real privilege for me to introduce Laura Brown. She's Director of Strategy, Policy and Programs at E-ISAC from NERC, the Information Sharing and Analysis Center in the US. Laura is joining us, I understand, from Washington, D.C. She has more than 20 years of experience in government relations and public policy with a focus on security policy. Laura joined NERC in 2011 and is responsible for managing and coordinating the E-ISAC policy issues with partner organizations such as the Electricity Subsector Coordinated Council, the National Council of ISACs, and government agencies. She also oversees the E-ISAC programs such as the Annual Security Conference, GridEx, and the biennial exercise GridEx. So Laura received her Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Villanova University and her Master's degree in Public Administration from the University of Delaware. So Laura's presentation today is about E-ISAC scope and GridEx experience in North America. So with that, welcome Laura. Thank you so much for joining us today, and please go ahead with your presentation.
Wonderful. Buenos días, buenas tardes, y muchas gracias por invitarme hoy a este evento tan importante para la industria eléctrica en Chile. And es todo. That's all my Spanish for today. My name is Laura Brown, and I work at the Electricity Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which is housed by NERC. You heard from my boss this morning, Manny Canso, and my E-ISAC colleague, Matt Duncan, will present virtually tomorrow. We're very sorry we couldn't be there in person. We're very happy that Lonnie and Ugo are there representing NERC. So today I'll spend a little time talking about the E-ISAC in general, and then I'll focus on GridEx, which, as you heard, is our exercise that we conduct for our members and partners every other year. So just a little history on the ISAC. As I mentioned, NERC houses the ISAC, which has about 50 staff members. And we're really focused on collecting, analyzing, and sharing information on potential cyber and physical security threats. I do want to mention that we are one of the few ISACs that focuses on both physical and cyber security issues. The ISAC has been around for more than 20 years, and the concept of information sharing and analysis centers was to better protect U.S. critical infrastructure through enhanced public-private sector coordination and information sharing. Today, we have more than 25 ISACs, and we work closely with many of them, such as the downstream natural gas ISAC, the oil and natural gas ISAC, and the communications ISAC. There are several others that we work closely with as well. Some of those are one-on-one relationships, and a lot of those interactions also occur through the National Council of ISACs, which is essentially a collective group of ISACs that meets on a monthly basis. We are a membership-based organization. Our core members include North American Electricity. And we talked a lot earlier today already about NERC mandatory and enforceable standards. In contrast to that, the ISAC is focused on voluntary information sharing. And one of the areas that is critical to our success is the code of conduct that we've put in place between NERC and the ISAC, and now it has extended to the regions. I believe Cal mentioned the six NERC regions. We've extended this code of conduct basically so that members are assured that voluntary information sharing cannot be used for NERC regulatory purposes. This helps to build the trust with our members and increase that voluntary information sharing. The ISAC's mission is to help electricity industry asset owners and operators across North America reduce the risk of physical and cybersecurity threats to their networks, to their systems, and to their assets. And we do this by collecting information, analyzing it, enriching it, and then, of course, sharing it and actionable information, threat information for them. You see our focus areas here. They are centered on engagement, information sharing, and analysis. Sorry. So membership, as I mentioned, our core membership includes asset owners and operators. We do have a significant number of partners that we work with, which I'll discuss in a little more detail in just a moment. But as you can see here, membership is intended for security directors, cyber and physical analysts. We try to target who contributes the information to make it most relevant. I do want to mention that those with compliance roles are not eligible for E-ISAC membership. So this is more of a visual representation of the many partners we have. Not all are represented here, but the message here is we can't do this alone. To help us in our efforts, we have a significant group of partners that we work with to gather this information, to analyze, to corroborate in a lot of instances, and share that security information back out. These partners include trade organizations. We have vendors, obviously government agencies, primarily in the US and Canada, and as I mentioned earlier, other E-ISACs. Our E-ISAC team is broken down into the following groups. We have our cyber threat intelligence group, which is basically consists of analysts, and they develop a lot of our products. We have our CRIS, Cybersecurity Risk Information Sharing Program. I believe Cal mentioned that earlier. And that is a public-private partnership that's with the Department of Energy, managed by the E-ISAC, and all of the analysis is provided by PNNL, which is the Pacific Northwest National Lab, one of our national labs here in the United States. Membership, our membership group obviously tracks membership, handles onboarding, addresses feedback that we receive so that we can enhance our products and services for our members and partners. We also have a performance management group that really manages our portal and helps track user statistics and budgeting. We do have a physical security team, again, a team of analysts that's really focused on looking at the data, analyzing the data, and developing products. Strategy, policy, and programs is my team, and we focus on a few different activities. You heard that in the introduction. I'll talk about GridEx later on. That's one of the programs my group manages, as well as their annual conference, GridSecCon. And we do work with a lot of those partners that was listed on the previous slide, and manage a lot of those relationships. We also have a watch operations group, which is a 24/7 function. Focuses on monitoring and alerting, providing support to our members. They produce portal posts and conduct incident triage and response. It's typically the first point of contact that our members have if they're sharing information or they have a request. And it's really important that we're able to triage and respond quickly to member shares, questions, and submissions. The watch went into effect 24/7 as a pilot in 2020. Good timing since we all, were in lockdown, and we made it permanent, I believe, in 2021. So we have a lot of ways that folks share information with us. Our secure portal is the primary way in which we receive information. We also get emails, and some people still pick up the phone and call to share information. We then take that information and work with industry. We'll either follow up directly with the person or the organization that shared the information with us. Sometimes we'll, if we think that it's something worth sharing on the portal, we'll ask permission to put it out on the portal and see what other organizations have to share in response. We also have a bulk data sharing process that we use, and this primarily applies to our physical security function. The bulk data sharing process really gives members an opportunity to just send in their raw data, and they do that on physical security incidents. They do that on a weekly or a monthly basis, and we take that data, analyze it, and then it really is instrumental in helping us with our data analysis, our trend analysis, and developing a lot of our physical security products. And here's just a sampling of the products and services available to E-ISAC members. This, again, is not the full list of items that we have, but I'll highlight a couple. I mentioned the portal already, the secure portal, which is where E-ISAC staff and our members post cyber and physical security related information. I do want to note that the information our members share, they can share it at any level of attribution. that can be, completely anonymous, some partial attribution, or full attribution. We do follow the concept of originator control, which means that the entity sharing the information can determine with whom they want to share. So they can either select all asset owners and operators, they can share all of the groups that we have listed on the portal, but it's up to them to determine who gets to see what they're posting. I want to mention the monthly briefing that we do also for our members. During those sessions, our E-ISAC analysts provide updates on whatever has happened in the past month on both physical and cybersecurity efforts. We usually also have a guest speaker and provide programmatic updates. And finally, I'll mention the IAP, the Industry Engagement Program. This is our way to bring together a handful of industry members from different companies so that we can exchange best practices. We can share sort of what we do at the E-ISAC. We can hear from them about some of their challenges and really get a better understanding of what products and services are most useful to them, what are the challenges their organizations face in terms of better securing their systems, and really try to build a sense of community. So GridEx, I mentioned that it was on the previous slide, and it's one of the bigger programs my group runs. I'm mentioning it because this is one of the few events or items that is publicly available. It's a public event, anyone can attend it. It's obviously intended for an electricity audience, but we do some cross-sector focus area, examination and have some discussions on broader risk and threat items. So we do branch out beyond the electricity industry, but I want to mention this again. It's an annual event. We were virtual the last 2 years, so we're really excited to be back in person in Quebec City in just under 2 weeks. The conference starts with a day of training, followed by 2 days of the actual conference, which typically has keynote speakers, panel discussions, and presentations. And the final day has threat briefings. We usually try to do an unclassified and a classified threat briefing, and we have tours of areas nearby that have a security or an electricity nexus. And throughout the week, we also have networking opportunities paid for by our vendors who contribute to the cost of the conference as sponsors. This is our 12th year hosting it. It's October 17th to the 20th in case you want to join us in Quebec City, but we could always look forward to seeing you next year too. So GridEx, I will now get into GridEx, which is another one of the largest, another large event that we host. I'll talk a little bit about the history behind the program and then how we planned for GridEx for an exercise of this size and scale. And then I'll talk about a couple of best practices that anyone who's looking to create a similar exercise program might want to consider. So GridEx has two components to it. Distributed play is a decentralized live operational exercise, and that's focused on response and recovery. It's primarily intended for E-ISAC members and partners. GridEx 7 distributed play takes place on November 14th and 15th, and we have hundreds of organizations all across North America participating at the same time. Participants aren't just electricity providers, but we also have oil and gas providers, telecommunication providers, third-party security vendors, government agencies, and law enforcement. Really, we encourage anyone who plays a part in responding to a major attack on North American electricity infrastructure. We encourage them to join with the utility so that they can play a part in experiencing the event and then reacting to it, responding to it. I also want to mention the executive tabletop. That is a one-day policy-focused invitation-only event that occurs the day after the distributed play exercise. So that's November 16th. That exercise, that part of the exercise is really designed to convene key industry and government leaders from both Canada and the US, and they're really looking at those extraordinary measures that are needed to respond to severe cyber and physical attacks, again, at a policy and a strategic level, and to coordinate executive national level decision-making, and we kind of targeted in a particular geographically focused area. So I'll continue my focus on distributed play, since that's where most of our members participate. So you can see here that our goal for GridEx 7 is, and really this is our goal generally for each iteration of the exercise, is to exercise the resilience of the North American electricity system. The nation state aspect, I think, is a more recent addition, the last 2 or 3 exercises, since that threat has really increased over the years. So GridEx is the largest grid security exercise in North America. And the reason why I think it is so important is because it provides a common forum coordinated across all participating E-ISAC members and partners to really practice response and recovery from a coordinated cyber and physical security threat, in addition to all the other threats that we have incorporated over the years. Most of the asset owners and operators, they run their local exercises. The advantage of participating in GridEx is that ability to coordinate with outside entities and build on these important partnerships. These organizations are participating right alongside everyone else, and you're all kind of experiencing the same incidents, and you talking with each other. And obviously, talking when things aren't actually happening is the best time to coordinate those efforts. Since 2011, we, with industry, have been building and expanding GridEx to make sure that we're answering our members' needs. It's a service we provide for them to use as they see fit. It is a decentralized exercise. That means that each of the organizations can customize to their local exercise to their needs. We have organizations of all sizes, all capabilities. So some will take what we've given them and add on to it. Some will just, focus on the sliver of the exercise, and that's exactly what we want them to do. We want them to really engage in a way that works best for them. I did want to mention a major change that we made to GridEx 7, greater focus on recovery during day 2. We have spent those 2 days kind of making everyone scramble and try to figure out what's going on. We decided to take a little part of day 2 to really focus on how teams will respond and react the week of recovery, following these attacks. So we want to give them some time to kind of think through what the aftermath looks like. I do also want to mention, speaking of cross-sector focus areas, we've added water and wastewater industry, the water and wastewater industry to the exercise, giving electricity utilities the opportunity to coordinate emergency response with other interdependent sectors. Let's hope that this moves along nicely. Okay, so I'll go through these next few slides briefly, how we approach the planning process for GridEx 7, and then I'll go into some of the best practices for running these kinds of exercises. Here we go. Okay, so you can see an overview of our GridEx 7 planning process here. The initial planning phase started. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure you're on the right slide here. Started back in the summer of 2022, over a year before the actual event, the actual exercise happens. It might seem like a long planning time, but we do actually have a lot that we want to ensure happens, get input from our experts throughout industry, throughout government, to make a compelling and effective scenario. That really is to ensure we don't slow down organizations who want to get a jump on GridEx planning. So with exercise conduct coming very soon, about a month away, we're currently at the end of our final planning phase. The work is now over to the members. They are putting their plans together and working with their teams to customize the MESL, the master scenario events list, and building their exercise plans. So we don't end with the exercise. We do have some after action work that we critical lessons learned for areas of improvement, not just in the planning part, but we also look at what are the lessons learned out of the exercise. What types of things do we need to change in the future? How can we act on some of these discussions that we've had? And, past GridEx discussions have resulted in things like cyber mutual assistance, which is a program that stood up as a result of some of those conversations. GridEx 6 also talked about the need for increased and better security information sharing across border between Canada and the US, as well as between government and industry, and trying to improve those. And I think we've seen improvements over the years, and that'll just continue to be something that we try to continue to improve. We do have all of our lessons learned reports available on the E-ISAC and the NERC website. So if you want to take a look at our past reports, they are all there for your review. So I don't want to give away too much about the scenario in November, but I do want to highlight some high-level themes that we're covering. There's really something for everyone here. For interdependency challenges, we continue to look at upstream and downstream impacts across different sectors like oil and gas, telecom, I mentioned water and wastewater. We also look at coordination with various government entities, supply chain. I know that's come up a couple times already today, very hot topic. And GridEx will feature multiple injects targeting these vulnerabilities. And apologies, I am a slide behind, sorry. We'll continue to feature social media. That was a big focus for GridEx 6, and bringing that back because it is such a significant impact to response and recovery, as we see in real life, but also in the exercise. And that goes hand in hand with external communications. How do you communicate with your customers when contending with fast spreading misinformation? How do you communicate with government and law enforcement partners during an emergency of this magnitude? We're also looking at organizational impacts and how we respond to operating models we find ourselves in today. The electricity industry continues to see a high level of turnover, which can lead to a loss of institutional knowledge. So GridEx is an opportunity to try to rebuild that knowledge base. And of course, we have cyber and physical attacks. Cyber attacks feature prominently ransomware, attacks on industrial control systems, vulnerabilities in third-party vendors and cloud infrastructure. And of course, there's been a lot of physical security impacts in the news over the last year in particular, so we'll be focusing on that as well. And then we'll look at prolonged grid operations under emergency conditions. For this exercise, we'll be simulating a long recovery time in the world facing various shortages in necessary materials. We'll be asking the hard questions to get our members thinking about how they might continue operations for weeks or even months without getting back to full capacity. So this is a lot of material to address in a single exercise. And again, some organizations are able to do all of it in 2 days. Others choose to limit their exercise scope to specific themes and objectives. And again, that is something that we really encourage our members to do just so that they can meet their needs. Okay, and lastly, I do want to mention some of the lessons learned over the last 12 years of putting together this full-scale exercise, really only scratching the surface here. I do want to mention 5 items that really have impacted us over the years. And I think this will be helpful if for any organization or industry that's working on their own exercise, regardless of your scope. So first, a good exercise requires support from the top of the organization. We hear this time and time again that they can't get support from their leadership. You have to start with your leadership. Developing a good exercise requires time, it requires work. It often requires a team of people from several different areas of expertise. If your organization's leadership is with you on these efforts from the beginning, and they see the value of running an emergency exercise to improve your resilience, you're set up for success. Second, you want to identify the objectives that you want to meet in your exercise. This will really inform everything else you do as you plan. You want to be able to answer the question, what do I want to get out of this process? Next, you want to identify the scope of your exercise, and this doesn't just have to do with how big your exercise is or how many people or organizations you want. You want to look at what kind of exercise you want to run. Is it a tabletop? Is it an operational exercise? Will it be real time? Will it be compressed? And once you've answered those questions, you can gather your planning team and get down to the next step, which is helping to build your scenario and developing a meaningful master scenario events list, while keeping those objectives and your scope at the forefront. And then finally, we have to keep the end goal in mind. And for these exercises, that means the lessons learned and the action items that we get after the exercise. That is really the most important part. You want to get concrete, measurable improvement. You want to see it happening, and that's what we try to do with the GridEx program. And I mentioned a couple of examples of some of those concrete outputs from the exercise, and you just want to make sure you're focused there. So that is what I have for today. I am happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Laura, for your presentation. Thanks so much. It was very interesting and insightful. I believe we're a little bit behind on the agenda, but I just have one question for you. And I guess based on your experience, what do you think is the biggest challenge and the biggest benefit of conducting this cyber attack simulation exercise like GridEx in the US?
I would mention two items. One is making sure the scenario is realistic. You want to be creative, but you want to also make sure that it is realistic. So you want to get the experts in the room with you, and we do bring a team together from industry and government to help us walk through different elements of the scenario. I think the bigger challenge there is making sure that you can build an exercise that can be used by all of our members and partners. So again, looking at the scale of our members, you've got the more sophisticated and larger organizations that can put resources towards the exercise, and then you have those that need tools, need assistance to help, just with a narrow scope. So making sure that we can provide the flexibility there and the scope for our members, I think, is one of the other challenges that we have.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Laura, again, for your presentation and for joining us remotely today. And so with that, I'll go back to Andrés. Andrés, volvemos contigo.
Gracias.
Thanks, Laura.